Welcome to the second episode of Photoshop for Beginners. Today I will talk about the tools panel, this one over here, and I use this arrangement. You can click this double arrow and change the arrangement of the tools, but this way you can see it better. So before we start, I want to mention that there are three groups of tools separated by this horizontal line. Here, and here, and the first group is called the selections group. The second one is called the retouching or painting group, and the third one is called the vectors group. Now this is not extremely important, but it's good to know, and I will start talking about these ones. But first I want to open an image so that I can demonstrate how these tools work. So I'll pick this image right here, and these two icons, these are for 3D objects. If you have the extended version of Photoshop, you will have these two icons. They are simply for rotating the camera or the 3D object that you're working with. Don't worry about that too much. I'm using Photoshop CS5, but the version of Photoshop that you have is not very important in this video, because all the tools are the same as on previous versions of Photoshop. So we'll start with the hand tool. This tool is used to move around when you're zoomed in on the canvas. So first thing I want to do is to show the navigator, and see this red square. When I zoom in, it becomes smaller, and with this tool you can click and drag and you can move around the image, or you can simply click on this red box here and move it around. But if you don't have the navigator visible, you can click and drag and move from one part of the image to the other. In this video I want to start talking about, well, I'll start mentioning some of the keyboard shortcuts that you should know, because they are the basic ones and it's good to know them. So if you, for example, have another tool selected and you want to access the hand tool, you simply press the space bar and click and drag, and when you let go the space bar, you go back to the tool that you previously selected. So and if you notice, this tool has a small triangle or arrow pointing down, and if you remember, or if you watched the first episode, I said that this indicates there are more tools inside of it. So if you click and hold, you get another tool, which in this case is the rotate view. And also notice this letter here is the keyboard the key assigned to that tool. So if I press the H key, I select the hand tool. The rotate tool is the same as the hand tool, but it allows you to spin the canvas like so. So for example, if you're painting with the mouse and you have difficulties drawing horizontally, you can spin the canvas. I don't find it very useful, so I always let it to 0. One thing you should know is that in order to activate this rotate view tool, you have to have the open GL, I think it's called. Let me see. You have to go to edit, menus, edit preferences, and in general, in performance, you have to enable this option which says OpenGL drawing. If you don't have this option activated, you will not see that tool. And if you cannot activate that option, is because you don't have a graphics card or some other problem with the graphics card. So let's move on with the zoom tool, which is this magnifying glass icon. And notice that it doesn't have that black arrow which means it's a single tool. And when you click on it, you get this magnifying glass with a plus icon, and when you click, you zoom in increments. I see down here on the left on the navigator. And if you want to zoom back, you can either select this icon or press the Alt key, press and hold the Alt key, and the plus turns into a minus, and you can click to zoom out. So with the Alt key you can see this thing switching as I'm pressing the Alt key. The next tool is the color selection tool. By default comes to black and white, and you can see these two squares here. The black square is used for the foreground color, and the white one is the background color. And if you hover the mouse, it should see how it says set background color and set foreground color. And when you click on them, you get the color picker, which allows you to select any color that you want. And once you have it, you click OK, and you have the color set right there. And here is the hexadecimal value, which indicates the exact value of the color. And you also have some color libraries if you're looking for a specific color, and a lot of books here with a lot of colors. So if you're looking for a specific color, you can get it from here. I don't use that too often. I use the color picker instead. So you can switch the colors with this curved arrow here. So if you want the background color, which is right now is set to blue, to act as the foreground color, you can switch it by pressing this or with the X key. You can see that on the pop-up. You also see the key assigned to that. Oh, it doesn't appear right now. There. So that's the color selection tool. It's really easy to use. Just click, pick your color, and click OK. The last general icon, it's the quick mask tool, which I will explain in another video when I explain masking and selections. So let's go with the normal tools, so to say. On the selections group, which is the first one on the top, you get the marquee tool, which I think by default comes into the elliptical one. So if you have the elliptical, you just click and hold, and you get the rectangular marquee tool, and you can start drawing selections like this. Or with the elliptical one, you can do selections like this. Now I will make a separate video for selections, because there are a lot of things you can do with selections and a lot of ways of making selections. But basically with selections, you're restricting the area that you're working with. So for example, I want to select this cloud over here, and if I get the brush tool, which I will explain in a moment, and I have this blue color, I can paint over it as long as I have the right opacity. Remember that the settings bar here works with the toolbar, so they're linked. And when I select the brush tool, I have these options here, and I can paint, but only inside that selection. If I paint outside, you won't see anything because the area is not selected. And if you want to deselect, just click and the selection will go away, as long as you have the style set on normal. If you have it on fixed ratio, for example, or fixed size, when you click you get the selections, and if you click you have the selection again. If you want to deselect, you have to right click and choose deselect. But for now, let's stay in normal. The normal mode allows you to make selections with your mouse just by clicking and dragging like this. I'll talk more about selections in another video, so I have to go back to undo the painting like that. The other selections that you have here, like single row, these are 1 pixel selections. Horizontal and vertical, I don't use them. In fact, I'll zoom in so that you can see that this is 1 pixel. selections. The options that you have here, I will explain that on the selections episode. You can feather selections, in other words, make them smooth. If you have something like this, you can apply a feather, for example, of 100 pixels, and the selection just smooths out like this. We stayed on normal. For example, if you go to fixed ratio and you want a specific ratio, you can type in here the relation and just click and drag, and the ratio is always the same. 16:9 is the widescreen format, so that's why I picked that. You can type 4:3 for example, and you have the normal screen ratio. If you change it to fixed size, you can type a size here in pixels, for example, or in inches, and like for example 200 pixels by 100, and when you click you get that dimension, the selection with the exact same dimensions that you have here. So that's pretty much it with the selections. Let's move on to the move tool, and this is simply used to move elements on the canvas. Right now this layer, which is the background layer, it's locked, so I cannot move it, and I get this error message. But if I create a new layer, don't worry about layers right now if you don't understand them, because I'll have a separate video for that. But let's say I have something painted on a new layer. I get a harder brush. I have this red dot here, and with the move tool I can move it around. It's as simple as that. Just click and move. If I have another layer with let's say a black dot in this case, if I select the move tool and I want to move the red dot, even if I click that and move it, it still moves the black one, and that's because I have this layer selected. If you activate this option here which says auto select, then you can click and the layer automatically switches. If I click the black one, it selects the second layer which corresponds to the black dot. I don't like to have this auto select on, because if I want to auto select the layer, I simply hold the control, and when I click this, the layer 1 will be selected. So watch this. See? And I can move around, and I prefer to work like this because I want to avoid moving elements by mistake. So if I want to move something, I press the control key to select that layer, and I'm free to move that layer and not another one. The options that you have here is group and layer. I will group this layer. Layers can be grouped. You select them and right click and you choose group layers. I don't know where that is right now. I'll press Ctrl G to group them, and now these are inside a group which I can hide by pressing this icon. And with this option selected, if you have it to group, when you click on when you hold Control and click on one of the elements, select the entire group. But if you have this to layer and Control click the black one, it will select that specific layer inside the group. Maybe right now it doesn't make too much sense for you, but when you will start working with groups and you'll have multiple elements, you will see that it's useful. Let's move on to the other selection tool, which is the polygonal lasso tool. Well, actually it's called the lasso tool because there are multiple types, the magnetic and the simple one. The lasso tool can be accessed by pressing the L key on the keyboard, and this one here allows you to to make free selections by clicking and dragging and make handmade selections, and when you let go it automatically closes and makes the selection for you. And just like before, you can paint here and do a lot of other things, which I will explain on another video, as I said. The second one, it's the same as the first one, but you make selections like this, where you have angles, and just like as the name says, is a polygonal lasso tool, and you make selections like this. Also really easy to use, but you have to in this case, if you want to close the selection, you have to put the mouse on the where you started the first point, and you get this the icon changes, and when you click, the selection is created. The last one is the magnetic lasso tool. This one works with contrast, so it locks. For example, if I click here, you can see that it locks to the ground, so it's really useful for selecting and extracting objects from the background. And notice that I clicked only once, and now I'm following with the mouse the edges of the trees, and of this tree, and the edges of the grass. You can click if you want to set a specific point, like here, but if you hold your mouse close to the area where there's contrast, it will lock like a magnet to it, and you can drag like this, and if you double click, you close the selection. Of course, this is a horrible selection, but anyways, for example, if you want to select this cloud, you just click here and follow with the mouse. It's not perfect, but now the next tool, the next selection tool, is the magic wand tool. It's a classic tool which allows you to select areas that are similar in terms of contrast. So if I want to select the sky, just click here and a big part of the sky is selected. And if I want to add to this selection, I press and hold the shift key and click again, and another part is selected, and so on. And notice how the clouds are not included in the selection. In this case, this one, yes, because it's almost similar to the area where I clicked, which is almost white as well. But you can decrease the tolerance to 10, and now you can see that these ones are excluded as well. Inside the magic wand, there's another tool for selection, which is called the quick selection tool, and it works almost the same as the magic wand. Just click and drag, and you can see that the entire area is selected. If you want to exclude an area from the selection, for example, if you want to deselect the clouds, you click this minus icon here and click on the clouds and paint, and you can see that the clouds now are deselected. So it's like a combination of the magnetic lasso and the magic wand. And of course, with the selections you can do a lot of things, which I will explain on another video. The next selection tool, it's called the crop tool, which allows you to select a part of the image like this, and adjust it however you want it. And then if you right click and choose crop, it will crop the entire canvas. Let's say I only want to have the tree and some part of the sky, and I don't want the other parts of the image. Notice that you can increase or decrease the opacity here. I like to have it like on 50% or something like that. And if I right click and choose crop, the entire image is cropped. And inside the crop tool we have the slice tool, which is used for web design, but I won't explain that right now. And then we have the eyedropper tool, which is also really easy to use. This is used to sample colors from the image. Wherever you click, you sample that color and you put it here on the color selection tool, just like that. And these the circular things that you see around when you click and hold the mouse, it shows the bottom part. Let me select the green. The bottom part is the previously selected color, and the top color is the color that you're sampling right now. As you see, as I move in, it changes. And the gray is for comparison. I think it's a 50% gray, so it's a neutral color, which allows you to judge luminosity values and stuff like that. I'm not really sure, but that's what I think it is for. Then have the color sampler, which allows you to sample a few colors for comparison, and you can see them here. Have this table, and if you click more than 5 times, you get this error message. The maximum number of samples is 4. So if you want to sample colors, and you get the values here, the exact RGB values. If you want to clear them, just click this button and you clear them. You also can make average colors, but I'm not really using this tool, so let's skip it. Next is the ruler tool, which it's mostly used for interface design or web design, where you need to know exactly how big is a certain element. For example, if you're making a sidebar or something like this, you can click and drag, and here on the top you can see the dimensions, the width and the height. So if you want to lock, for example, the height and only measure the width, you have to press the shift key and move the mouse horizontally, click and drag horizontally, and you can see that the height is 0 and the width is in this case I think it's in pixels, and it's displayed here. If you want to do the height and lock the width, you also have to press the shift key but move on the vertical plane, and you can see that you have the height and the width is set to 0. Also really easy to use. I only use it for web design, so in manipulations and stuff like that I don't think it's useful. Then you have the node tool. It simply allows you to add some notes to your design. For example, if you're doing something for a customer, and when you deliver the PSD file, you can have a note here, and when he clicks it, they get this note here, but I don't use it either, so I'll clear it. Yeah, this is just a matter of practicing and messing around with Photoshop and see what you have inside this tool panel. The most important ones I'll make separate videos for them, so don't worry. Next we have the count tool, which is, as the name says, it counts. Whenever you click, it adds a number. Let me change the color to black and change the size to 6 and the label to 22. So whenever you click, you get a number, and if you want to clear them, just click this button. So if you want to count clouds, 4, 5, 6 clouds, we have 6 pieces of clouds and 1 tree. And if you want to count trees, for example, you can create a new group by clicking here, and it starts again. So we have 1 bush and 1 tree. And of course you can change the colors to this one separately, I think. Yeah, I don't use this tool either, so I'll delete the groups. Now this is a more important group, which is the painting group, you will use it a lot more than the selections.